Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NFL with Kyle. We are starting a exclusive series called Interviewing Broncos Country because I couldn't come up with a better name. But sorry, I just took him out right off the bat. Just took him out. Um, this is going to be the first interview of many, and they're all going to be on this YouTube channel. So Donovan, I just want to say thank you for choosing to do this and coming on the podcast. I'm super excited to have you.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here, talk about the Broncos, just chat, see what's going on?
Definitely. So you have been a Broncos fan for how long? Oh, and just a little bit of information for the guests that may be watching this in the future. I have really no information about each guest that I'm interviewing. I prefer it that way for the interview to be organic. So all these questions are not asked just for, your sake. I truly don't know the answers to them. So it should be fun. So, okay. How long have you been a Broncos fan?
I've been a Broncos fan since roughly 2011, 2012. I don't know the exact date. Um, I have a kind of more out there ish reason as to why I originally became a Broncos fan. So, someone that's born and lived in Houston my whole life, the Texans have always been the team that everyone around me supports, either that or the few people that are the Cowboys fans down here. Well, I never really clicked with either of those two teams. Like I do enjoy Houston sports for the most part. Like I'm a big CJ Stroud fan, but for the most part, I'm a Broncos guy. So how it all started was my best friend and I would play Madden all the time. Growing up playing Madden, I want to say '08 was our first, then '09, 10, 11. It was Madden 11, I believe, which I couldn't find a team. I was always so bad. He would always whoop me, but I landed on the Broncos. I just choosing random teams, and I won. And it just felt amazing actually winning a game with them. And so then I used them again, and I won. I used them again, and I won. And it would be to the point where I would use another team, I would lose. I'll play the Broncos, and I'd win. And that's how I became a Broncos fan.
I love it. I think a lot of people have these unorthodox kind of stories of how they became a fan. I know my story's really strange. I won't tell it every single time, but I'll give you a quick version of it. I grew up in Wisconsin. Everybody was a Packers fan in Wisconsin, and we used to play recess football. This was like first grade, and Brandon and Wesley were the Packers. So me and my friend Alex had to pick another team. Long story short, we went to the library, we laid out every book, and we both picked the Broncos. And we opened the book and we read it. And, 24 years later, we're still diehard fans. So I have no idea how it happened, but it just seems like there's a little mile high magic in some of these fan stories. Have you ever been to a game in Denver?
No, I've never been to a single game in Denver. My very first Broncos game was this past season in Houston.
Okay. And it's funny, we growing up, we had a family friend that played for the Texans. His name was Kevin Walter. And Kevin Walter was a wide receiver. And it was funny because we lived in Jacksonville, and every time the Texans came to Jacksonville to play, we got to meet all the players. So Andre Johnson, Schultz. There was a lot of, they had a pretty good squad at that time. I think they were coached by O'Brien, the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, or was the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. But when my favorite player growing up was Reggie Bush. Do you know Reggie Bush?
Yeah, I know Reggie Bush. I don't. I kind of from 2000 five ish through to 2015. My NFL memory is kind of shaky, but
Right. Well, yeah, Reggie Bush to me was like the most polarizing player I've ever seen, and I knew whoever the Texans drafted, I would get to meet in person. And they drafted Mario Williams, and Reggie Bush went number 2 to the Saints. So that opportunity kind of slipped by. But it's funny you say you're around a lot of Texans and Cowboys fans. So I assume you're in Texas.
Yes, born still living in Houston.
Okay, and you got a jersey on right now. Who are you rocking?
Patrick
Patrick
Surtain.
Surtain? Hell
Yeah,
yeah. I got him there in the back. He's definitely my favorite player on the team right now. I think
absolutely.
99% of Broncos country agrees. Um, do you remember Champ Bailey?
Yes, I do remember the a lot of latter years of Champ Bailey. I wasn't around for his prime, but like certainly his twilight years, I was very much a fan.
So when would you say you kind of went from just playing with the Broncos on Madden to watching all of their football games on Sunday?
Really, the Peyton Manning era, like every game, I want to say I tried to watch as many as I could because, living in Houston, we didn't get that many Denver games. But since they were such a great team, they were on many primetime national television. So I got to watch as many as I can, like, as many as I could.
Yeah,
Um,
and I I I I really think that nobody is taking the Peyton Manning era for granted. I mean, we had it so good. Two Super Bowls in 4 years. One of the historic offenses of all time. 55 touchdowns in a season. I mean, it was just Denver pretty much won every game, and if they lost, it was actually strange, and that went on for 4 years, and it was just so much fun. But the last 9 years, 10 years, we haven't even been to the playoffs. I think we're tied for the second longest playoff drought with the Jets right now. It's been rough, so it's kind of cool. Because how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 22.
22. So I was making this point the other day that my childhood, I was born in 1994. My childhood, Denver was pretty much for the most part always relevant. I kind of compare it to the 49ers, who have a lot of Broncos roots in them. You look at Ed McCaffrey's son, Christian McCaffrey. John Lynch was our safety. Kyle Shanahan's their head coach. His father was ours. There's so many ways that they're connected, but being a Broncos fan when I was young was pretty much every year they had a chance. Maybe not the Super Bowl, but they were in the postseason. They made a couple AFC championships that I remember against the Steelers, and it's just if you've been, let's say, you started remembering football after 2015. Let's say you were, 8 years old at the time. Now you're 18 years old, and all you've seen is Denver lose. Most of their games. You've never seen them go to the playoffs. So I always say, like, we're for a kid that grew up, that's the Browns, that's the Texans when they were bad. Like, we're one of those franchises, but we're not. We're a historical franchise that's been great, but if you're you know a younger fan, you haven't seen that much success, especially you've seen no success post Peyton Manning era. So it's kind of impressive to see a younger, not that you're young, but just like a younger fan, because that means you've endured a lot of pain, a lot of losing, and you've kind of stuck with the Broncos. And there's probably Bronco fans out there that are like, "Oh, you're just a fan, because of Peyton Manning." But the thing is you stuck with it for all these years, even though we haven't really had anything to celebrate. Do you feel like it's been challenging to stick with the Broncos, or was it like, I have no choice, I have to because I care this much about them?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a bit more of the second one where it's like this is my team. I don't just want to show up and just enjoy the success, then jump off because if I want to do that, I would be wearing a Chiefs jersey right now,
No.
and I would rather be caught dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well done.
but it's definitely been painful over the last few years. Like I said, um, Super Bowl 50 was my freshman year of high school. So all the middle school years were mostly fine, but then since then it's just been wannabe quarterback after veteran quarterback after wannabe after veteran. I want to say 15 quarterbacks we've had since Peyton Manning. I think that's the number now after Stidham started.
I
Um,
stopped counting.
yeah, yeah.
I gave up after. I don't know. I mean, not to cut you off, but is there a quarterback within that 15 that you actually believed in? I'll go first and say Drew Lock and Joe Flacco for the off season until the actual season started, and we saw
Mhm.
even Case Keenum. I bought into
Yeah.
coming off that Minneapolis miracle. But anybody particular that kind of you felt like it was going to work?
I was kind of thinking the same thing about Case Keenum specifically after that Vikings playoff run. I thought, oh wow, they started so good with Teddy Bridgewater. He goes down. Then this other guy, Case Keenum, who I do believe spent time with the Texans before that, so I had already known the name. Um, and then just seeing that he signed with us, I was thinking, okay, I think this is gonna be not Peyton Manning, but I thought that he could be at least somewhat like middle of the pack, what we think of like a Kirk Cousins now or a Dak Prescott. I thought that that's what Case Keenum could have been with us. And then I wasn't as high on Joe Flacco. I honestly did just I didn't like it. I would have much rather us like went in with a younger quarterback after failing with Case Keenum. But then the same guy that you mentioned, Drew Lock, I thought he was the man. Like I thought he was going to be like our future. I thought like his strong arm. I was thinking, I don't know how he fell to the second round. I don't know how this guy fell to the second round. And just seeing that we got him, like I just thought he was like our guy. And I'm still one of those like Drew Lock truthers that like I believe that if he got put in a good situation, if he didn't have a head coach that hated him, and if he had someone that actually took the time to develop him, maybe he could have been a quality starter in the league, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and probably the biggest fan of the channel, Bill, is in the comments. First off, he said, "Came in uniform, love it." But the reason I bring Bill up here is because you and I both have that in common. Where not only did I think Drew Lock was going to work, I still believe in Drew Lock right now. And I know the Seattle Seahawks Eagles. I think it was Monday Night Football where he threw the game-winning touchdown, where he got the start for Geno, who I think he got hurt late in the first half, and Drew Lock led them. I don't remember. It was like the last series before halftime, and then he ended up throwing a game-winning touchdown. So. Um, I bring Bill up because he's a Giants fan and Drew Lock is with the Giants now, and Daniel Jones. Mixed opinions on Daniel Jones, but I think that if Drew Lock gets the opportunity to start this year, he may impress a lot of people, especially when you see Giants fans. Not to say they're easily impressed, but um, you know how they felt about. Tommy DeVito and they
Yeah.
rode with Daniel Jones. I think they're gonna like what they see from Drew Lock, and I think they're gonna buy in just like we have.
Yeah, exactly. Because just seeing like how Tommy Cutlets showed up and was like their guy. It's like, oh, he's getting all these like attention. Everyone's talking about him for what, like 3 weeks was it during the span of last season. And but especially with Brian Dable as their head coach over there in New York, I truly believe that Drew Lock could have some sort of, I don't want to say that same like, oh, Geno Smith, like he's a starter now, gonna get a 3 year, $100 million contract. Maybe nothing quite like that extensive, but I could see him impressing with the Giants, and maybe some team is like, oh, we'll give him like a Gardner Minshew type deal where like he'll like we'll give him like 25 million for 2 years. He'll be our like bridge gap starter, and if we like him, we'll keep him.
Yeah. All right. Do you remember the Pat Bowlen era?
Not very well.
But yeah, of course Pat Bowlen and the rich history. When he was our owner, my most proud stat to tell people when if they said, "Tell me why the Broncos are the best organization in sports," I would tell them because they've had more Super Bowl appearances than losing seasons, which is kind of like a huge flex if you really think about that. But that stat is no longer true. And of course, it became untrue post Pat Bowlen. And now you have the Walter Penner group kind of taking over for the Broncos. I love where I love what we have at head coach in Sean
Mhm.
Payton. But um, how do you feel about the Walter Penner group? And is there any way you could turn me down a little bit? I am getting a little bit of myself
Yes, I
in the
can.
few.
Here we go. Sorry.
No worries at all.
There we go.
Uh, Perfect. But yeah, how do you feel about Walter Penner Group?
Honestly, so far so good. Like you hear like they have Walmart money, and it's kind of a bit like scary to think that the team's owned by Walmart. But I don't think it's quite as black and white as that because I have noticed that they seem very willing, not just capable, but willing to spend money on the team. Because I believe we're going through a new practice facility right now.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
it's amazing.
what was it? The very last game of not this past season, but the season before, they didn't like the field, and they spent over 100K just for the field for one game.
Bermuda
Um,
grass.
yeah, and so like seeing stuff like that, it's like you think that not only is it an ownership that loves the team, but they're all in on the team. And with especially with the hire of Sean Payton, like they had to spend a lot of money to get him into town as well. So it's like they're really trying to go all in to show that they not only love but support the team.
For sure. I feel the same way, and I actually use the grass as an example myself. I Because that really was a huge flex. I mean, for a meaningless week 17 game to put that kind of money down. Um, I love the direction we're headed into. Obviously, the biggest news. First, before we get into like the draft and Bo Nix, I just wanted to get your feelings on the Russell Wilson experiment. What you felt about it when it first started, what you felt about it after year one, and then of course Sean Payton became the head coach, and everybody had hope again that he could fix Russ. And then how you felt about his kind of departure out of Denver.
Okay, so starting with Russ, I remember exactly what I was wearing whenever I found out about the Russ trade. I was wearing my workout tank top and a black pair of shorts. I didn't have any socks or any shoes on. You're probably thinking like, why do you remember it that well? It's because I was so filled with excitement whenever I saw that we traded for him that I literally ran up and down my street. Um, quite literally ran up and down the street, and it wasn't until I was halfway back that I realized that it was raining.
I just got out of the military, and when you're getting out of the military, you have to take this class where they kind of teach you how to transition from the military to civilian life. And I look at my phone. I'm in this class, of course. This is still a very structured class. You can't just like run around, But I I look at my phone, and it's Aaron Rodgers agrees to a 2-year $100 million contract, and I'm like, I thought, at the time we hired Nathaniel Hackett, we were trying to make a move on Aaron Rodgers. And then my phone vibrates in my pocket, and I look at it, and it's my uncle. And he goes, "Your new quarterback." And I thought he's being a smartass because, Aaron Rodgers was gone. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. And he was like, "I'm serious. You guys have Russell Wilson." And I'm like, what is going on right now? So I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. I go outside. I click on the NFL app. Of course, it's a military base, so there's like no signal. I'm like putting my hand up, and then all of a sudden it's like breaking blockbuster trade Russell Wilson, and I'm like, yeah, I'm freaking out, dude. Like I get in my car, I'm calling family. I'm like, I gotta go to lunch. It's an emergency, and they let me go, and I'm just literally the same as you, where I remember exactly where I was when that happened. I was like, it's over. The
Yup.
quarterback search is over. Um, and that's just so cruel to think about, like how, not just you and me, but the more I ask, most people felt this way about it. I still have his jersey hanging up behind me. Um, I just it's just crazy how that all went down. And then I was at that week 1 game against the Seahawks where
Oh
Russell
yeah.
Wilson returned because I was stationed in Washington State. So I immediately was like, I'm going to this game. I don't know when it is. Then the NFL said it's week 1. And we were like, whoa, okay. So there was only, I believe at the time, there's only 4 quarterbacks in history that had played their former team after winning 100 games. So you had Peyton Manning going to the Colts. You had Joe Montana, I think, as a Chief playing the 49ers. You had Brett Favre playing his old team. And there was one more. I can't remember who it was. Russell Wilson was the fourth. But in all of those situations, not only did those guys not play their former team year 1, it was year 2. And now you have a quarterback that's playing his old team game 1, year 1, which I thought was just a little ridiculous from the NFL. But I was like, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I went to the game, and of course, we attempt the 65-yard field goal, and it was just brutal. And I think that moment I realized we don't have Peyton Manning. Like, if
Yeah.
you were around during the Peyton Manning era, you know that he was a general on the field. He would never look confused. And there was moments where him and Nathaniel Hackett both had their hands up, like, I don't know what to do. Do you know what to do? No. And they're like, oh shit. And then next thing you know, McManus runs onto the field. And I'm telling you, that field goal looks so ridiculous in real life. To see them on the other side of the 50-yard line setting up a field goal on, I believe, 4th and 3 when they were averaging like 6 yards per play. It made no sense. And then they ran the clock out on themselves. You would think if they're going to
Yeah.
attempt a field goal, you at least run out and do it really quick, and then you can try to get the ball back. That whole thing was a dumpster fire. And that was just kind of a sneak peek of things to come. But then Sean Payton gets hired, and were you on board with like, okay, he's going to be able to fix Russ? Because I was. I said there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to
Hmm.
fix Russ. And I guess he did. I mean, if you look at his stats, he went from around 30, 31 to 15, but ultimately it wasn't good enough for Sean. Did you feel like it was good enough for you? Should Russell Wilson have stayed with the Broncos? Or just trying to get like your feedback on how you felt about how this was handled at the end of last year?
My biggest thing about the Russ situation is I would understand wanting to keep Russ if he was on a much smaller contract. To me, it's really the contract that doesn't justify keeping him around because we were paying him to be the guy. We were paying him to be a top 3 to 5 quarterback in the league, not to be number 15, not to be especially number 31, number
It's a great
30,
point.
like we did the first year. Um, like if he was getting paid as like a rookie contract, like if Bo Nix comes out and like his first season is just like Russ's first season here, and then his second season is just like Russ's second season, and then it's I want to say his third year we're paying him like $6 million for that, whereas we would be paying Russ this year. I want to say his cap hit would have been somewhere around 60. Don't quote me on that though.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't have the numbers up, but they did ask Sean Payton about it, and they said, considering how much dead cap money, was it hard to make the decision to move off Russ? And he said no,
no,
and it was
just
like,
no.
just no, not like no. I had to think hard about it. Just like no, it was one of the easier decisions I've had to make. And it's like
Hmm.
wow. The way I look at it is, taking everything into equation, I think what Sean is trying to say is like, I can I can make this team better, but I got the most out of Russ last year. And what like there comes a point where it's like, okay, I'm limited in my play calling because of the
Mhm.
quarterback. And I think Sean took over the Broncos to fix them. And I mean, obviously plan A was to fix Russ, but I think it became clear that that was not something that was going to happen. I mean, I was at the Dolphins game, the 70
Oh,
point game. I was at week one at when we lost to the Raiders. The fact that we were up, I think 28-3 against the Commanders, and then they came back and won. Like it was just, it was a really, really rough. I think we got our first win against the Bears, who had like a 21-point lead on us at one point. It was just a really, really bad year, but that was not Sean's team. And Sean was trying to make this work, but it kind of felt forced. And now just watching Sean's press conferences, like when he's talking about Bo Nix, he's like, you saw the comment where he's like, it's like watching an amazing golfer. Like
yeah.
he said, it's almost relaxing watching Bo Nix. And I think part of that, uh, and this is the part that he's not saying, is after spending a year with Russell Wilson, it's even more relaxing to see a quarterback do what I'm actually asking him to do. And what are those things that Bo Nix does? Well, he gets the ball out of his hands extremely quick. That's why he had the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in the history of college football. And what Sean wants to do with the scat offense he runs is he wants the quarterback to make very quick decisions, have a high IQ. We know Bo Nix grew up in a football home. There's the story about asking him to empty the contents of his backpack, and all he had was like playbooks. And he's just a true, I guess, a student of the game. And he's the more I learned about Bo, the more excited I got about the pick. But when it was picked at number 12 overall, I was not like, yes. There was a part of me that was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I thought maybe we would get uh, Terrion Arnold to go on the other side of Sertan, or I
Mhm.
thought maybe with that 12th pick, you got to get a surefire player. But Sean felt a way about Bo Nix. So it doesn't really matter where he was picked. If Bo Nix turns out to be one of two Hall of Fame quarterbacks out of this draft, no one's ever going to go back and say he was drafted too high at 12. And that's the way Sean felt about Bo. When he was picked, just kind of take me through how you felt about the pick initially, how you're feeling today, and if you think it's going to work out.
Yeah, it's just because the number one thing that I think that Sean Payton, the reason why he wanted to move on from Russ was because Russ just he wasn't hitting the guys that were open. There were way too many times per game that this NFL level quarterback was just leaving wide open plays, scrambling outside the pocket, running himself into pressure. Whereas with him taking Bo Nix, that's the exact opposite. Like it's the exact opposite quarterback. Bo Nix will stand, he will see the open guy, and he'll hit him every time. So that's why I thought that whenever we drafted Bo Nix, I was just thinking like, yeah, Sean got his guy because I was kind of in the camp that wanted to trade back, maybe trade down a few spots, recoup a second round pick in the process, and then pick Bo Nix. But by the time that five quarterbacks were already taken ahead of him, I was thinking, no, don't get cute. If we go Brock Bowers or Terry Arnold here, then the Raiders are just going to take Bo Nix. So I was just of the mindset of if you have your guy, you take him. Like you
Yeah.
just stick and pick. Because I mean, just saying, I'm not trying to throw nothing crazy out there, but the last time there were six quarterbacks taken in the first round of the NFL draft, the sixth guy taken was Dan Marino.
Yeah.
So
I and the other quarterbacks I went through this 2 days ago, and I went through all six of those quarterbacks. So John Elway was the first,
mhm.
and then you got a bunch of quarterbacks that you wouldn't know. And then I think Joe Namath might have been one of them. Let me see. I think that was the 1982 draft, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Let
either
me.
82 or 83.
It might have been 83. Let me try 82 first and see what happens. Here we go. 1982. Number one. No, it was 1983. All right, so you got John Elway, then you had Todd Blackledge. Don't know him. Jim Kelly. Okay, I
Mhm.
remember him from Buffalo. Not remember him watching, but just I've heard his name. He's a Hall of Famer.
Four
And
straight
then
Super Bowl appearances.
appearances. Tony Eason was drafted to New England. Don't know him. And then Ken O'Brien was a bust. The Jets drafted, of course, right? And then Dan Marino uh, to the Dolphins. And what's different is that was the sixth quarterback taken in the first round, but this was the second to last pick of the first round. So it was almost a second round pick, Dan Marino.
Mhm.
Um, in our case, you had six quarterbacks go in the first 12. So that is kind of a unique twist on it, but you're totally right. Um, last time I love that stat because it's just a good reminder that just because there's a lot of quarterbacks taken doesn't mean that the last guy Sean felt any differently about as maybe like a Drake May. I think when you heard Sean talk about the process of evaluating Bo Nix, he was pretty clear about how there was a moment in that evaluation where he said, "Are we the only ones seeing this?" Um, and we can't be the only ones that are seeing this. But that tells me that even if Sean was picking higher, Bo Nix might have still been his guy regardless. And
Yeah.
last time he fell in love with the guy, he was trying to draft Patrick Mahomes, and
Hmm.
uh, the Chiefs traded up to get one spot ahead of him to draft Mahomes. And he said that in the press conference. He was like, "All of you guys saying that we should have moved back." He was like, "I've been in this boat before, and moving back does not guarantee that you're going to get your guy." So the fact is it really worth gambling for a third round pick to maybe miss out on a future, Hall of Fame quarterback if that's how he thinks of him? And it's like, absolutely not. So I think as fans, we get so kind of locked on to what the draft analysts are saying, draft grades, all the outside
Hmm.
noise. But there's an internal process going on that is, just between the four walls that doesn't involve all that noise. And we're not in those conversations. And sometimes you see Bo Nix getting drafted at 12. You see that they can be on two different pages. But who do you trust more? The people that evaluate, these players or an entire team led by a coach that led the NFL in offense 11 of his 13 years with Drew Brees in New Orleans. Like Sean Payton is, his signature means something. If he signs off on a player, that means something. So I think Broncos country is definitely like behind that pick. And then you look at some of the other picks, Jonah Ellis. Uh, I think the DNVR podcast just had the head coach of Utah on their show today. And he was talking about Jonah Ellis, and he was like, he has a very high floor. Like he's going to be an effective player. And he has roots with the Denver Broncos, where his father played with the Broncos. And then round 4, Denver trades up and gets Troy Franklin. What did you think about that?
Honestly, I thought that was awesome because not only is like that receiver 2/3 um like a big need of the team because like yeah we have guys like Marvin Mims and Josh Reynolds that could like occupy that role, but I like Marvin Mims as more of a just a true deep threat type of guy, not necessarily as like a one you want on the field like every down. And then we can't really rely on Tim Patrick to stay healthy all season, which would be awesome if he could. But just drafting Troy Franklin, because not only does he have that Bo Nix connection, but he also just fills a role that we don't really have on the team because we don't really have any sort of like yards after catch threats. Like you could say that Marvin Mims could occupy that as like a design touch type of receiver, but it's just like the Bo Nix connection. It just makes it to where like not only can he just like lead him, then he can like take the yards that like Troy Franklin gets on his own, and then he just like turns up field, sees what he has in front of him. Because Troy Franklin did a lot of great stuff after the catch on his last year, and I think that he can do plenty of that for us as early as this season, but definitely like years 2 and 3 going forward.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and especially with kind of a little bit of uncertainty surrounding Cortland Sutton, the injury plague that Tim Patrick's had, and another position group that I think was needed depth, and some people might make the case it wasn't, was running back. And Javonte Williams coming back from a really bad injury much faster than we expected, but he
Mm-hmm.
never really, I mean, he had his moments, but he didn't seem to me like the Javonte Williams prior to the injury. And it's very common for a running back to have that major injury, for it to be not the year after surgery, but the year after that, year two
Mm-hmm.
after that, that he really gets going. So I think that's still a maybe, right? We don't know if that's going to happen yet. And then you got Jaleel McLaughlin, who was really effective, but he had a 32 grade on pass protection, which is
Yeah.
just absolutely awful. And we became predictable anytime you brought him into the game. They knew exactly what we were doing because, of course,
Mm-hmm.
he's not in there for pass protection. He's awful. So then it kind of limited how creative Sean could be with him. I felt like there was all these limitations everywhere when Sean was trying to make certain plays. It's like I'm trying to get people involved, but they're just not they're not well-rounded football players. Russ can't
Mm-hmm.
see over the middle of the field. Jaleel McLaughlin can't pass block. So I like the draft of Audric Estime, the running back taken in the fifth round out of Notre Dame. Uh, at first, when I first looked at him, I was like, man, he ran a 4.7. He didn't seem like he had the breakaway speed, but then everybody in the YouTube comments that are Notre Dame fans said he's much faster on the field. And he's somebody that I think is going to see a lot of playing time early. So anytime you can draft somebody in the fifth round to make a huge impact, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
exciting. What did you think about that pick?
I thought it was awesome drafting Audric Estime. He wasn't one of my like top running backs coming out. I want to say it was oh, I can't remember the guy's name,
Trey
but
Benson?
yeah, Trey Benson and Blake Corum. They were my two guys that I was really kind of like in on. Um,
Yeah, Trey Benson was my number one guy too.
mhm. But they're just seeing like Audric Estime because he was like someone that I was hoping that we could get in like a later round if we didn't get anyone early. And just seeing him, he is like you've seen the picture of him where he's just like both his arms are out. He's just like like
Yeah,
that. Like
linebacker.
he's built like a defensive end like that. But just like seeing him run and like I've seen like plenty of clips of him and the fact that he'll not only run over people but he'll also jump over people. Like I just think that it's such a fun running back to have because like he's also he's a dog when it comes to pass protection, and I think we can sprinkle him in a bit more when it comes to like the pass game. Maybe nothing too crazy besides like swings or screens, but yeah, just like having him in the room as maybe just like a future replacement for Javante could be nice because like if Javante does have like a comeback year right now and then next year he's also really good, like we're not gonna pay him, which it would be awesome to keep Javante in building, but it's like with running backs, especially with like the depth that we'll have between Audric Estime, Jalil McLaughlin, and potentially the UDFA guy. I can't think of his name off the
Um,
top of my head.
Blake Watson, I think.
Blake Watson. There we go. Um, between those three, I think that we could have like a potential like 2 to 3 years from now a good running back room. Plus, if we like draft another guy late, a year or two from now, it's just I don't see Javante being with the team 2 to 3 years from now. Whether that's because he prices himself out of here, or if that's just because other guys replace him. Um, Either way, I hope that he does return to form. He gets back into shape and looks like the guy that he was his rookie year and his sophomore year before the injury. Because I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the league because his forced missed tackle rate, it was, I want to say, second to only Nick Chubb.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb was actually his comp when he was drafted.
Hmm.
That was and he led college football in broken tackles his last year. So that's kind of his bread and butter. And you've seen the segment Angry Runs on Good Morning Football, and
Yeah.
he's won that. I think he won it twice. Not last year, but the year before, he won it twice in 1 year. So no, he's an absolute beast. So I'm with you. I hope he can return to form. And Bill said here, I like Donovan's go get your guy mentality. We took Phil Simms at 7, and that was like 20 higher than projected. You got to take your guy when you can, and I can only hope that Bo Nix turns out to be as good as Phil Simms was for you guys, but moving on to the schedule. So we got probably like 15 minutes. I got actually another interview with another Broncos fan coming up. But I definitely wanted to go over the schedule with you. Week 1, they're playing the Seattle Seahawks. And then week 2, Russell Wilson likely returning back to Denver.
Hmm.
Um, a game against the Jets, week 4, the Nathaniel Hackett drama. And then the Saints, week 8, is it, no, 7, I believe that's week 7, Thursday night football.
Hmm.
There's a lot of kind of revengeful undertones in the Broncos' first 4 games, not including the Saints game, just the Jets, Steelers, Seahawks, and
Hmm.
those are games that we really, really, as Broncos country, we want to win those games. Like you could almost say we need those. We need those moral victories, and it seems like every time we've had one of those, we've lost it. Whether it was the Jets last year or the Seahawks, week 1, and I just feel like we're tired of being the laughing stock of the NFL, and we gotta start off with a bang, and we have to go to Seattle, which it's like we just went to Seattle 2 years ago. Why can't they come to our house? That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. But then the home opener against the Steelers should bring a little extra juice. So whatever, I guess that levels out. I'm still a little upset about it, but is there any of the games that you saw on the schedule that just you can't wait for? I mean, obviously aside from week 1 cuz that means football's back, but
Yeah.
just like once the schedule's rolling, just a game that you're like that's the one I really want to win.
Yeah. I want to say week 2 with the Steelers coming back to town. I wonder which boos are going to end up being louder. The Seahawks booing Russ on his return or us booing Russ on his return. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I that's definitely a sound I can't wait to hear. Um, but also the week 4 game I believe is against the Jets. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers can make it 4 games instead of 4 snaps this season. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, he
because I think that team can be really insane if they actually stay together, just depending on how much Rodgers is running the show versus how much Hackett is running the offense. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jets are gonna be really good. I
uh,
mean, if
and
Rodgers can stay healthy.
yes, yes, that's a huge caveat. Um, but also the Saints game, I feel like that's more of a I feel like that's more of a fun game than any sort of like, oh, we hate you, you hate us, let's fight each other to the death type of game. I feel like that's just more of like a fun, oh hey, Sean Payton's coming home, because anytime I've interacted with any Saints fans, it's been the exact opposite of any Seahawks fans about the Russ situation because
Yeah.
they all just want to yell at me, scream at me. I'm like, look, I just support the team, all right. But any Saints fans, they're nothing but awesome. They just keep saying like, oh yeah, y'all got a great one. We hope that he does well for y'all. We hope he wins the Super Bowl with y'all as well. And it's just like nothing but love coming from the Saints fans. So it's really one. I do hope that we win, obviously, but it's not one that I'm worried about being ridiculed for losing either. You know.
Yeah, and I have personal animosity with the Ravens, so that game is probably one that It's like there's a Steelers game and then that one. Like I just
Hmm.
really want to win that game. Of course, the Chiefs. First time to play the Chiefs is not till later in the season, and
Hmm.
the guy that creates the schedule just came out and said that the schedule is actually kind of written around Taylor Swift's schedule. So she's got a show on tour in Canada, and then they made like the Chiefs Bills play in Buffalo that same weekend so that she could make the short trip to see him. And this is public. This isn't like conspiracy stuff. They've come out and talked about it, how that, and that's so ridiculous to me. What do you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Taylor Swift stuff? Because I think it's, you know, I'm not as bothered by it as some people, but that's probably because I have, real problems. Um, so I don't really just think about it that often. But it's funny because the people that were upset about it were the same people that couldn't stop talking about it. But I haven't talked
Yeah.
about it in a while, and I just saw it before I came on here with you, that little article. So, what do you think about all that?
I just find it as another reason to hate the Chiefs. Really beyond that, it's just it is what it is. Obviously, with the Swifties paying extra attention to them, and like that's just another thing. I just think it's way too overblown, really, with them like always cutting to her, but then like everyone wanting to make a big deal about it. It's the same people that are making that big deal about it that are the reason why they keep showing her, why they keep cutting to her, why it's
Right.
showing like, oh, this is how far she has to travel. Will they be able to make it in time? We don't know. And I'm just thinking like, does anybody actually like care about it one way or the other?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about it the most though is that it's made people that aren't Bronco fans dislike the Chiefs, right? So I immediately feel like, all right, yeah, everybody come on in, the weather is good. The you are invited into this Chiefs hatred, with
Hmm.
all of Broncos country. We welcome you with open arms. um the water is fine, jump in. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And then I just saw that and I'm like, wow, it would be really funny, like if they break up and and all of this is for nothing. I don't wish that upon anybody. If Travis's
No.
health is happy, and, then that's more important than football. But just as a fan, it's fun to ask about it. It's been interesting since she got into the picture. And I don't think that Taylor Swift fans are necessarily gonna love football the way we do just because she's at the game, no matter how hard you try. And this is kind of my whole thing about how weird it is that when I opened the book as a kid, I became such a big fan, is because you don't really get to pick your passions like that. I can't just say tomorrow I'm gonna be a Jets fan and go
Hmm.
buy a jersey and buy, all this stuff, and wake up in the morning and be like, I'm a huge Jets fan because I purchased stuff, right? Like something has to happen inside of you that makes you want to watch press conferences, want to go down Reddit rabbit holes and go on an interview, like whatever happens, it's not like our choice. It's kind of, it feels like our choice, but really it's like the Broncos chose you, and for that I feel lucky. And I know no matter how much people love Taylor Swift, they can never choose to love football, the way that it would organically have happened already if they did.
Hmm.
Um, Bill says Kadarius Tony is on the Chiefs. That's all I need to hate them, Kyle. If anyone is left on the team, if anyone left on the team is even left after all the recent arrests. Yeah, that is true. They are
Yeah.
causing a lot of trouble with Rasheed Rice and all that stuff with the
Hmm.
broken jaw. So you and your buddies talk about football a lot. Do you have any Bronco like friends or family members, or are you all by yourself like me?
Not a single one. I'm all alone.
Not anymore. You got me. I'm telling you, I'm the only Broncos fan in my entire family. Like
Hmm.
it is just me, and they all think, oh, he just did it to be different, because they say
Yeah.
that with everything. Like, if it's something political, if it's a movie review, they always think I'm going against the grain just for the sake of going against, and it's not true. I really do. I've always loved the Broncos, and it's funny though not having anybody to share it with, because when I went to my first game, it was weird. I like waited my whole life for this moment to go inside that stadium, and I went in there and I felt a little bit alone. And it was weird because I went to the game by myself. I flew from Miami, got my own hotel, went into the game by myself. But the thing is, there's 76,000 people there, but nobody knew what it meant to me to be there.
Mhm.
And I realized a really important lesson. Like, if you don't have anybody to share the best moments in life with, um, they're not really as valuable as you'd think. So if you ever want to go to a Broncos game, I'll go with you. If if you ever want to go down, and honestly, we got a bunch of people that want to do these interviews, and I'm hoping to build a small Broncos community on this channel. Um, and maybe we could even, like, once a year, have like a big trip to a Broncos game. I think that would be fun because a lot of the people that I've talked to actually have never been to a Broncos game, and I have yet to go to a Broncos game, not by myself. So and it's kind of weird going around trying to, tell people, how much it means to you that are
Mhm.
in the middle of a tailgate. You come off as a little bit desperate, but
Yeah, a little desperate, a little bit of a loner. It just, yeah,
yeah.
no.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
man.
was lucky enough to my first game. I was able to bring my two friends. One of them who is a big Texans fan, and then my other friend who is a Seahawks fan. But growing up, really, I was the only football person in my house, like at all. My little brother was like kind of interested, but he's like half in, half out when it comes to football. But but really, it's just I just like know other people that are like fans of this team or that team, but not a single person I know is another Broncos fan.
All right. I want to do this in closing because I do have another one coming on at
Mhm.
11. What's your all-time favorite Broncos game? All-time favorite Broncos moment? And I'm gonna do you a solid. I'm gonna remove Super Bowl 50, and I'm gonna remove Von Miller's strip sack. Um, just so it's not like obviously when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like maybe a moment that um you just, when you think back on it, makes you happier than any other moment.
Um, Single moment, I would have to say 2015 game. We're playing the undefeated 10-0 Patriots in the snow,
Oh
and
yes,
yeah, Brock
CJ Anderson.
Osweiler's playing the game, um, and it's the toss left to CJ Anderson, and he just takes it all the way, and it's out of nowhere. Like, we just beat the best team in football, and like that's not my favorite game, but that's my favorite moment because just like I can just always like visualize just CJ just taking the pitch and just dashing through everybody just straight into the end zone, and it's just like such an awesome play in general, and just like the what it meant because really that play was what kept our Super Bowl hopes alive for that year. Because without like that one single play, it just doesn't happen. And favorite game, it's kind of hard since you took out Super Bowl 50, but I would say it's one of two games. It's either
Sorry, I'm
no,
done.
you're fine. You're fine.
I was trying to get the that's the play. I put it in the background.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was trying to make us small and that big, but I couldn't figure it out. Sorry, keep going.
No, you're fine. I would say either when we beat the Chiefs last year, just because no one beats us 17 times in a row. Um,
That was amazing.
yeah, just because the feeling of finally we have that just broken. now we just need to take care of the Raiders streak this season, and we'll finally have that off our backs as well.
I get it.
But either
Yeah, and
that,
sorry, go ahead.
no, you're fine. It's either that or I want to say it was a 2013 game. It's us versus the Cowboys in the shootout. Um, I can't remember what the final score was. I want to say we put up 50 in that game, but I can't remember. But it's just remembering like an ancient Peyton Manning taking a bootleg, just a naked bootleg in for a touchdown. That like whoever would have predicted that would happen? Not a single person saw it coming.
It's funny, I brought that play up like 2 days ago. The against the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so funny. And then that game, I remember exactly where I was during that game, and I remember how happy that made me. I'm so glad you brought it up because I haven't thought about that play in a while. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I think one of mine is it was I believe the 2005 AFC divisional round. And this is like when I was really young, but I remember being so happy that I couldn't go to sleep. Like as a kid, like I was probably at the time I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and I was just laying in my bed just cheesing. You know what I mean? Like I can't
Yeah.
believe it. Man, I almost miss how happy, because now I'm still happy, but it's just like you get older but when you're younger, there's something just more magical about it. But
Mm-hmm.
we were playing the Patriots. We were in Denver, and it was the first time I saw them in the playoffs. And Champ Bailey intercepts the ball and goes 99 yards back, and then gets hit because he slows down and fumbles the ball into the back of the end zone. But that play was still like a momentum shifting play because the Patriots were about to score, and then all of a sudden we flipped the field on them. We should have scored, but it was funny because as a kid, like I didn't even think, the safety, it didn't matter. It was so cool to see a player intercept the ball and then take it 99 yards, and that kind of got us the win, and then we went on to lose to the Steelers, who went on to win the Super Bowl. But
Mm-hmm.
um, and then my all-time lowest moment as a Bronco is easy. Joe Flacco's Hail Mary in the AFC divisional round in 2012. Um,
Way more.
yep, and that play, I mean, it's part of the reason why I dislike the Ravens, and there's even more layers on top of that. Um, the Chiefs thing, yeah, I'm glad the streak's over. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is like the Raiders streak pisses me off more because I could understand why the Chiefs have the streak, right? Patrick Mahomes, probably
Mm-hmm.
going to be the greatest of all time when it's said and done. But what the hell do the Raiders have over us? Like, that is just unacceptable. Like, the Raiders are not that great. They're not great at all. They had a
No.
dysfunctional head coach, a quarterback carousel. It's just it's humiliating that they have our number, and I really hope that streak comes to an end next next year as well. But
Yeah.
do you got any would you be interested in coming back on like during the weeks like when football season kicks off and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you would want me on, I'd love to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, if you have any like closing thoughts or anything like that, feel
Um,
free to say
God
whatever you
bless
want.
Bo Nix. That's all I
God,
got. That's
yes,
all I
yes.
got.
Let's bow. I'm still trying to figure out what our slogan's going to be with Bo Nix.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's gonna take a bit to find one, but
yeah, I'm sure one will stick eventually. The Let's Bow is kind of cringe, but we
mhm.
need some time to work. Do you know Bo Nix has the shortest name ever? Like,
NFL history.
and
Yup.
then somebody said Ty Law, but Ty Law's real name's not Ty.
Yeah, it's I remember looking this up, but I
Various?
can't remember what it is.
It was like Tavarius something.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I'll definitely bring you back on, especially before week one kicks off. we'll see how we're feeling and we'll touch base and everything like that. But thank you for coming on, everybody that's been in the comments. We do have another interview coming up. Bill Little E was in here. You guys are amazing. Anybody watching this later, please hit the like button. It helps our algorithm out. And hopefully, if you're a Broncos fan or just an NFL fan, you can make this your football home. And thanks, Donovan, for coming on here. And I'll see you soon.
All right, see you. Have a good night.
You too.